Hey everybody, this is Evan Abrams, and in today's After Effects tutorial, we're going to put signs over people. This technique will allow you to put a sign over someone's head that you can tilt as their head tilts, and turn as their head turns, and translate as their head translates. Now, it's not a perfect 3D solution, and we are using After Effects' built-in planar tracking, not 3D, so 2D, not 3D. And then we're going to use those inputs to create some of the 3D properties we need. But we'll get into some of the limitations as we do the tutorial, and we'll talk about some ways you can work around them. So, I'm Evan Abrams, and let's put signs over people.
Alright, so inside of After Effects, the first thing you want to do is import your footage, which you can do by right-clicking and going import, or, just double-clicking or something, but short end of it is import some footage. I'm going to use the footage that you saw in the intro. So, once you have it imported, drag it onto the New Composition button, and now we're going to find the space that best exemplifies this technique. Let's find a spot here where I'm done touching my toes, pointing above my head, turning my head from side to side, and then moving about. So, the thing we want to do is get from about here, and I'm going to hit the B button to set the beginning of a work area, and then we are going to go to the end. I'm going to hit N and set the end of a work area. So now I'm going to trim the comp to that work area because this is really the only section I'm interested in. So the first thing that we want to do in order to put something above my head is to track some features on the object that you want things to be stuck to. So this might sound pretty obvious, but you need to pick points on here that are stable, consistent, and always in view. Now, for us, we are going to use the eyes because they're not going anywhere. I don't lose one during the course of this production, and they're just pretty stable. So, we are going to be having some tilting, so my head goes side to side. We're going to have some turning, which is great, and I guess that's really all you need to convincingly put a sign on someone's head. So, basically, we are going to use the tracker. If you don't have that, go Window and click on Tracker here to pull that up. And then once you select your footage, it'll give you the options to track the camera, warp stabilizer, stabilize motion, or track motion. We would like to track some motion. I'm going to find a spot in the footage where I'm just staring flat onto the camera like an idiot, and I'm going to hit Track Motion. And that's going to give me one of these little tracking dealies. And I'm going to put it over the region of my eye. Now, this inner window here is representing the feature that it is searching for. So, I would like this entire feature here. I'm interested in that whole area being tracked. I'm not being super specific on the point that I want to be tracked, and that's only because I don't really care. I mean, the object is going to be way up here. It's not going to be pointing directly right at this zone. So having a good solid general track is better than having a jumpy specific one. So that's good. This outer window is the region that it's going to search in to find this thing. So I'm going to have it be pretty large. And I would also like to find the rotation and scale. So drag this out and do the same thing over here, setting this to be the whole area of my eye, and man, do I look tired. That's just sad. I need to take it easy or something. Anyway, so we've got these two things right here, and I'm going to go into the options, and I'm going to choose some stuff in here. You can rename the tracker if you want. If you have other tracker plugins, you can use them. But this one is going to be looking at the channel that I want to be determining, what is and isn't this feature. And I'm using RGB, but you can use luminance if you have a huge contrast between dark and light areas. So if you have things like a zebra and you want to track some stripes, then luminance is a good call. Saturation is good if you have a lot of difference between highly saturated and highly desaturated areas. But if you have neither of those options, then I recommend you use the RGB channel to do your tracking. I go ahead and I enhance before it does things, which just punches up the contrast a little bit, makes it a little bit easier. You don't see it visually, but it does it in the background. Also, I enable sub-pixel tracking, and I ask it to stop tracking if its confidence is ever below 50%. If your confidence ever drops below 50%, you should stop whatever you're doing. You should go home. You should start working out, eating protein shakes, and that'll help build a lot of false confidence. Then you can go back out to the bar, get rejected some more, and just pretend like it was not your fault. So if your confidence ever drops below 50%, stop whatever you're doing. That'll allow you to readjust your tracking points. And that other thing I said was a horrible joke, and you should just hate on that as much as you like. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. That's good. And I'm going to say track backwards. That's this button here. And I'm going to sit here. I'm going to watch it track because I want to see if it makes any mistakes, which, it seems to not have. The eyes are still right in the middle there and stopped when it reached the start of the comp. I'm going to hit UU to bring up all the keyframes, and you can see that it is creating many, many, many keyframes. So that's good for it. So now we are going to track going forward, setting the playhead here and then clicking forward. Onward, tracker. Track the crap out of this stuff. Oh, and it has stopped because it is no longer confident. So I'm just going to adjust it a little bit, make sure these are right in the center, and then say, continue, track away, my good man. Oh, it's stopped again. It's lost confidence in itself. That's fine. I have confidence in it, and that's what's important. I have confidence in sunshine. I have confidence in blah, 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 blah. Don't know a lot of show tunes, but this stopping method is, I feel, superior to having it adapt the feature every time, because that would mean anytime its confidence is off, it's going to be like, well, I'll find a new feature, and then I'll track that. I don't want that. I don't want it just making stuff up, because that's I'm not cool with that. Anyway, we're going to press on. Oh, yep, started to fall off a little bit. Get you back on there. And continue. La, la, la. And the head is tilting the other way. So you can see, even though both of these features remain in view, they are changing. As you can see, the nose, my giant nose, gets in the way there. And then it starts to come back. Still, that nose is in the way. It's disgusting. Just sallow eyes staring into your soul, creeping you out across the internet. I should really do fewer tutorials that involve staring at my face. I think that would just help my confidence to be quite a bit above 50%, I think. Anyway, our tracking is done. We don't have to look at me as close anymore. That's great. Looks like I'm wearing awesome glasses. I should probably make some glasses that look like this. Get some kind of merch going. Anyway, we're going to create a new null object. This will be our target. I'm going to rename it target. You rename layers by selecting them, hitting return, and then you rename them. So type in whatever you want. I'm going to hit edit target here. And I'm going to make sure that it's pointing at layer number 1 target. Okay. I'm going to hit apply, and I'm going to apply the X and Y dimensions to it. And that means it's going to stick this on tracker number 1. And then it is going to rotate and scale it depending on what happens. So it's always going to be pointing this edge at tracker number 2, which is great. And it's going to be scaling it so when the eyes get closer together, as a result of rotation, it's going to scale it in together. So we're going to then use that scale to power the rotation of another layer. It'll be good times. So this is our target. Let's go back to where I was staring straight on at the camera like a real moron, and I'm going to create a new null object. I'm going to call this one the controller. All right. Now I'm going to call up the position and rotation of both of these, and I'm going to make the controller 3-dimensional. So it now has an extra attribute here and there and different ways of rotating it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set its rotation by holding down Alt, clicking on the stopwatch, and then dragging the pick whip onto this rotation. So this will always be turning to the left and right, clockwise and anti-clockwise, or counterclockwise, depending on where you live. It'll have the same rotation as the target. Also, the position I would like to be at the same place as that. Good. So it's basically stuck right on there. See, it's moving left and right and turning and la la la, and that's working out quite fine. Great. Now I'm going to hit A to bring up its anchor point, and I'm going to move it so that this square is now sitting where I would like the sign that I'm going to put above my head to be situated. So see how that's looking? Pretty good. And if you want the thing not to turn, forget the rest of the steps we're going to go through, and you'll be fine. You know, right now it's just tilting left, right, and translating, and for some people that's good enough, and you can stop here, but we're going to move on, and now we're going to create a new, some new text maybe. I'm going to type out stuff, and this will serve as the sign that goes above my head. So I'm going to make this pretty big. Pull up my align panel over here. If I can figure out how to click on things, that would be cool. And I am going to pre-compose it. All right. Just going to call this sign, and I'm going to make it 3D, and then I'm going to parent it to the controller. All right. Now I'm going to call up its properties by hitting UU and making sure its orientation is at 0, so it's exactly what its parent is like, and its position 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Awesome. So it's right there. So as you can see, it's already a sign stuck over my head. Change this contents to whatever, make it a logo, make it a picture, animate it, make it text, go nuts. Anything in this composition is now a sign stuck over my head. Whoop-de-woo. Okay, so we are already pretty much halfway there. So we get into the tricky stuff, that we want the scale of this, which as you can see is rarely at a full 100, but we want this scale to be affecting this rotation. So let's give it a try. Let's get into it. I'm going to call up its rotation, and we're interested in the Y rotation of this thing. And we're going to use an expression on this. And I'm going to type in 100 less or minus. Let's say less or minus, I don't care. Less the scale of that. Hit return, and it's going to give you a big ol' error. It's disabled because the result is dimension of 1 and not of dimension 2. And that means that linking directly to the scale, which has 2, 1, 2 things, is not appropriate to stick into something that has only one thing right there. So put square brackets at the end of scale and put a 0 in there, and that will make it just fine. So now what happens when this scale, say, goes to 80? Well, 100 minus 80 is 20, right? Yeah, that seems about right. So it's going to rotate this to 20 degrees. All right, well, what does that mean? Well, as you can see, when my head goes this way, that actually looks pretty correct. However, when my head looks the other way, it's rotating in the reverse direction, right? So if you only ever turn one way, you're going to be pretty fine. But should you ever turn back the other way, then you're in trouble town. But we'll solve that after we solve a couple of other problems. Problem the first is that it's pretty shaky. You see here where it goes clunk, 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 like that? I don't like that. That's not, I'm not cool with that. In fact, a lot of these keyframes are pretty clunky, right? So I'm going to select them, and I'm going to look at their graphs, right? And if we have a look, we're looking at value graphs. So let's look at a value of the rotation. See, it's got these weird bunk, blunk, like just big spikes in it. And I don't think those are cool. You look at the scale, it's got even worse spikes in it. Like this one here, that's not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to smooth those out. Thankfully, there is an expression you can use to smooth things, all right? You just type in smooth, and then a couple of brackets. And then we're going to set some parameters of the smooth. So things like the width, so that has to equal something. And then the samples, that'll have to equal something. And then the t, which is time. So t should always be time. That's what it should be. The samples are the number of points it'll be using to take the average. I like 5, 3 or 5. Usually an odd number is best. And the width I would like to be 3 divided by the frame rate. All right, I'm going to hit return on that. Now, we want to see what that's done to these values. All right, so we have a look here in the graph editor. And if I hit this button, show post expression graph, have a look at what we've got. So we've got this dark line here, and that represents the new values, and the light line represents the actual keyframes. So see how it took these and went, smooth, like that. So now, when you have a look at how it's rotating around, because we've done this to the scale, which then affects the rotation, it's a lot smoother. I mean, certainly it's still bouncing around because we need to smooth out everything else, but it's helping to smooth this along. So I'm going to apply the same thing to the rotation here and see if that, has any effect. And I'll try it on the position as well. Now we watch that through, see if it gets any better. Oh, it sure does. Sure does. Looks a lot smoother, one might say. So that is the smoothing expression, and that is what that does. You can't see it, but I'm doing a lot of hand gestures when I say smooth, so to indicate the smoothness. So it'll make you a smooth person, and it'll make your stuff smooth along. So the second problem that we have to fix here is that this is not rotating in the way we would like. Not at all. So why is that? Well, it is because this number needs to be inverted. If this was -20, no problem. So what we need to do is put an expression on this. So let us first encapsulate this in brackets, regular old rounded brackets, and we're going to multiply this by x. What is x? Well, x needs to be defined now by an expression. And that expression is going to need some manual control on our part. So let me just cause an error. Now it's angry. And I'm going to put on this a checkbox. And put the checkbox control right here. And a checkbox basically is this thing. When you click it, it's a 1. When you don't click it, it's a 0. And it only holds those two values. So now we need to link this checkbox to this expression. So the expression is going to look like this, and it's an if-then. So it is if, and then if this checkbox, which you can do by just pick whipping like that, is exactly equal to 1, then in these weird squiggly brackets, x is equal to 1. If it's not, then x is equal to -1. And so we'll see how this goes. So when I turn this way, it's working out just fine. Ooh, now turning back the other way doesn't work. So we're going to find a place here where the rotation is really close to 0. Set a keyframe here for this. Call up those keyframes. And then I'm just going to check that box. All right. So here it's good. And then the box is checked, so we're switching to the other side, and we're good again. So see how that works? So here before, that's fine, and then we invert the function by going to the other side, right? Pretty interesting stuff, eh? Let's look at the values that rotation has by clicking here and then looking at this graph. You can see where that bounce takes place. It's right there. But it's also a spot that was really close to 0 anyway. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But anyway, you get the idea that now this thing is turning and rotating with wherever my head is. The only problem with the manual control is that you need to put those checkboxes in, and sometimes it doesn't work out. You'll have to fudge the numbers, but whatever. This is a pretty quick and dirty way to accomplish this effect. Now, some things to say here at the end of the tutorial. Now that you've already wasted your time learning this one method, you could use a 3D object tracker. There isn't one in After Effects right now. Possibly there will be in the future. At the time of recording this, there just isn't one. If you want to use something else There are third-party softwares that do that. I believe Synthesize is one of them, and another good one is the camera tracker from the Foundry. But these are things that cost extra, so if you don't have the cash to fool around with that, and your situation doesn't require it, this is a good enough option. So, some things to consider with this are, is my shot locked off? This shot was locked off. It was very easy. Is my subject easy to track? Can I find points on my subject that I can stick things to? If you can, then this is great. If you can't, then you're going to need to figure out something else. You may have to do some manual work to get this to work. But beyond that, this is a pretty simple way that you can use planar tracking to create 3D attributes for a sign that you can put over somebody's head. Anyway, this has been Evan Abrams. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I try to put out new content on this channel all the time, but I get busy. You get busy too, I'm sure, and it doesn't always happen. But check back here for regular updates. Subscribe to this channel if you want to learn about visual effects and After Effects and cool stuff like that. And I try to get into the deep stuff, so you know why you're doing things, not just how to do them. If you have any questions about this technique, ask them in the comments. I'll try to get to them when I'm able. If you want to just chat about visual effects and such, hit me up on the YouTube discussion or my Facebook page or my Twitter at ECAbrams. Those are all great places. Links to all that is in the description. You should check it out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you want to download the project file for this, there will be a short clip of footage you can play with. Maybe you don't have a camera or whatever, but you get to enjoy staring at my bearded weird face all the time while you work on that. And I think that's about it. Thanks again for watching. Subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you around the internet.